The shooting that took the life of that officer happened just after noon near 2nd and Jackson in Ogden. We begin with live team coverage on the situation there.
Fox 13's Sydney Glenn and Lauren Steinbrecher are near the scene where the shootout happened. But
first, Haley Higgins has the official response from Ogden Police. Haley.
Yeah, as you can imagine, Ogden police are devastated over the news of one of their own being killed today. Now, this marks the 10th officer that was shot and killed in the line of duty for the department. And today, the chief was holding back tears when he explained what happened. Here's the video.
Please bear with me. I'm going to provide you some information on the event, but I will not be releasing the deceased officer's name at this time. I'm going to give the family some time to grieve and come to grips with their loss before disseminating that information to the greater public. I will also not be releasing the name of the deceased criminal. I will not be taking questions at this time. We'll plan another conference in a day or so when we have more accurate details and information available that we feel comfortable sharing. In the Epistle of John, chapter 25, verse 13, the Savior states, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." That is exactly what happened today. A fine young officer with just 15 months on the job was struck by gunfire and killed, protecting a family, our community, and fellow officers around him. At approximately 12:15 p.m. today, officers of the Ogden Police Department were dispatched to a home in northeast Ogden on a domestic violence call. A female had contacted 911 reporting that her husband was threatening to kill her. The call was disconnected without further information, and attempts to reconnect were unsuccessful. When officers arrived on the scene, they were confronted by a male in the area of the front porch. He was uncooperative and suddenly retreated into the home, slamming the door behind him. As officers moved quickly to the door to attempt to follow, the suspect began firing through the door. The Ogden officer was struck by a fatal round and was dragged from the scene by other officers. The officer was taken to McCady Hospital's emergency room where he was pronounced dead. An adult probation parole officer who was on the scene of the initial call was also struck by gunfire, has been treated at the hospital, and is recovering from non-life-threatening wounds. Officers on the scene returned fire as the wounded officers were being dragged from the scene. Once the scene was secured by additional responding officers from many agencies, the Ogden Metro SWAT team took over the call and were successful in extracting some children from the house. Subsequent actions on their part determined that the suspect was deceased inside the residence. I'm sorry I can't say more at this time. Too much is still uncertain, and the investigation will take a few more days to be completed. Again, please bear with us in this time. We'll be more forthcoming once this intensive homicide investigation has been completed. Our hearts are broken. We've lost one of our own. The days to come will be hectic for us. Please, as a department, as a community, as a state, and as a nation, let us not forget such fine men and women who every day offer their lives up on behalf of this great and noble calling. Thank you.
Now, that was Chief Randy Watts speaking to the media about an hour ago. Now, I'm told that the Ogden Police Department is upstairs right now, working together, trying to discuss their next step. In the meantime, though, members of the public were just here putting up blue and black ribbons here at the police department to show their support for the officer who passed and for those who are left behind. Reporting live in Ogden, Haley Higgins, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Haley, thank you. A heartbreaking day for all of us here in Utah.
Emotional press conference. Fox 13's Lauren Steinbrecher is in the neighborhood where the shooting happened. Lauren.
Yeah, Kelly and Bob. So, of course, when those gunshots went off, neighbors in this area heard what happened, realized that this wasn't just fireworks. Now, you can see these houses here on the left. They had a little bit of a vantage point just slightly down the street, kind of where officers responded after hearing those 30 to 40 shots. They say police immediately showed up, started yelling for people to get inside their homes. Now, at that point, they realized this is a serious situation. This is something that is happening right now, that it is active. And then at that point, that's when they say they see Ogden police officers carrying their own fallen officer.
I walked outside and saw about 5 or 6 officers carrying another officer to the ambulance.
It was just cops all over the place, and they all had their guns out, and they would like jump on the fences, and they had their guns out.
Now, everybody here stayed inside their homes, of course, wanting to stay safe, listening and watching what they could out their windows, kind of at this area where you see still here this evening police activity. That's the Weber County Sheriff's Office Command Center vehicle. They did, a while later, about an hour and a half later, say they heard about 3 other shots. And then one person described hearing police say all clear after that. So at this point, we're not sure if that is when the suspect passed away or if that's when officers discovered that the suspect was no longer alive. But of course, an extremely scary situation for this neighborhood, you know, just going about their day and then all of a sudden having this unfold.
Chilling description there from eyewitnesses. Lauren, thank you.
Fox 13's Sydney Glenn is also in Ogden this afternoon. She's speaking to witnesses to this officer-involved shooting. Sydney.
Yeah, it's a really emotional and tough day out here. A lot of tears. Just before we came on here, I saw a woman and an officer hugging, and that hug had to last at least a minute. And when she pulled away, you saw the tears falling down her face. And that's not the first person I've seen cry here today. Everyone just trying to come to grips with the situation. Everyone saying this is a quiet, happy neighborhood. Neighbors know neighbors. And they had no idea what was going on here. All of a sudden, they thought maybe it was construction. One neighbor told me they thought it was fireworks, and then it was gunshot after gunshot after gunshot. One woman told me she looked outside to try to figure out what exactly was going on. The police came up to her house, told her to get inside, lock her door, and then they even ran around to the back of her house to lock her door. She said she was terrified, obviously, as you can imagine, and she started crying, just saying she can't imagine what these families are going through, and that officer just showed up to do his job. Another neighbor that I spoke with says all of a sudden he got this feeling that it wasn't just a small shooting, that something very bad had happened today.
When I saw that first police officer, I knew just the way he was driving down the street, I knew that there was something serious going on.
Quickly after seeing one officer, witnesses tell me all of a sudden 20 more came along. And then, as you can see right now, the officers haven't left yet. You have yellow crime scene tape here. You have red crime scene tape down there. You have multiple officers every which way. Most neighbors are staying inside right now, but every once in a while they're coming out. I saw one neighbor coming out handing out water to officers and even reporters as well out here, and our photographers just trying to, have a moment of thanks. I saw another woman stop by, and she was giving out food to all of the officers that she said she just knows are going to be here all night long. She was crying, and she just told me this was the only thing she knew how to do during a time like this. Just a really sad situation out here.
Fox 13's Sydney Glenn reporting live from Ogden. Today's incident is the 10th Ogden police officer killed in the line of duty. The last you'll recall was Officer Jared Frankham, who was killed in January of 2012 while serving a no-knock search warrant. 146 Utah peace officers have now died in the line of duty since 1853.
Here is a recap of what we know so far about today's shooting. Ogden police say the shooting happened at a home in the 300 block of Jackson Avenue in Ogden around 12:15 this afternoon. A SWAT team also responded to this call call, which is being classified as a domestic violence call. When officers arrived, they found the suspect uncooperative on the front porch. He then went back inside the home, slammed the door, and began shooting rounds outside. Officers did fire back. That suspect was found dead inside the home. The area is still blocked this evening for the investigation. We'll continue to follow the situation. We will have more live from Ogden coming up at 5:30.